If you're a copywriter, what you sell is very intangible.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Uncensored Direct Marketing. Today, I have John Caprani. John is the king, I would say, of social media networking. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, as well as John is a copywriter, but he's taken a little bit of a less traditional path, I guess, in terms of copy. And he's using his copywriting skills in very various areas. So if you're in copy or you're in marketing, this is a great episode for you. So you can learn that even, as AI and other technologies are taking over copywriting jobs, there are like a ton of things that you can be doing outside of just writing VSLs or email marketing. And John's going to give you some great examples of what he's doing right now that's working. So John, thank you so much and welcome.
Cheers, Maria. Thanks for having me here today. Appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. So John, tell us a little bit, just, obviously we can hear from your accent, you're not American. So tell us a little bit just about you, who you are, and like how you got into this world.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm Irish, as you can probably tell. How did I get into this world? I used to be in the construction industry, and I was somebody who made things. I was like a boat builder, and then I got into like resort development, and I was like always in production. But there came a point where people I was working for wanted me to sell. So I had to learn a bit of sales. And a lot of the clients I was dealing with were in different countries. So I was, sending emails, that kind of stuff. And around that time, I discovered this thing called copywriting exists. So I started to read some of it, use some of the things I was reading in the books to help me with doing sales via email, and just found it useful. And then back in kind of tail end of 2018, I'd been 10 years of construction, and I was like, I don't really want to keep doing this. It's time for a change. So I had all these copywriting books. I was like, okay, I'll give this thing a go. It's something different. It's location independent. I don't have to be stuck in one place.
Yeah.
And my family, my wife and I were moving countries. We were like migrating at that time with our kids. So it made sense. So I just said, okay, I'll give it a go. I got my first client around kind of maybe March 2019. And we just went from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So from construction to copywriting, that's a big leap and a big jump, but that's, obviously a testament of, your resilience. And I hear these stories a lot. And usually the people who have zero experience have no idea like what they're kind of getting themselves into, but want to make a big change, they go ahead and do it. So that's really awesome. But construction into copywriting is probably the first person that I speak to as a copywriter that was in construction, because that's so different, right?
Totally different. But I was like looking after crews of like 30 plus guys, and it was just like dusty, noisy, it's a mess, very frustrating. And it was kind of a reactionary move. I was like, I'm just so sick of all this noise and this mess and doing the same job 3 times trying to get it right. I want to do something where I don't have to like deal with a whole bunch of other people, and I'm going to go write copy. And that was great for a while, but it definitely came to a point where I was like, I want to actually, I kind of miss people a little bit. I'd like to reintroduce people into my work a little bit more. And that's kind of where I'm at these days.
Well, that's funny, because I actually went off on my own in 2009, and I had the exact same kind of path as you, in the sense of like, I just didn't want to work with a lot of people. At some point I was getting just very frustrated in my work. It was the same thing. It was like, hey, can you do this again? I was like, I just want to like be home, location independent, and I don't want to have to deal with people in general, just do my work and whatever. And then in about 2013, a couple of years later, it was the same thing for me. I was like, I think maybe I want to see a couple of people. Maybe I want to meet people and so forth. So, I mean, you are in Ireland physically, but it's funny because, on social media, you seem to know a lot of people, and you're connected to a lot of people, and a lot of people know you and have very good things to say about you. So the interesting thing is, from what I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, you've never met these people physically. Like you don't physically go to networking shows or to conferences, right?
I have not been in the United States for a long, long time. I think the last time I visited the United States was like 2003.
Oh, wow.
So I need to visit again, but it just hasn't happened. The opportunity hasn't come up the last couple of years. I've got young kids. My wife has a business as well. It's difficult to try and like get away, and it just doesn't make sense with the age my family's at. But yeah, networking is super important, and everyone talks about it in the industry. And just like you said, most people talk about it from the perspective of, or I'm going to traffic and conversion this year, or I'm going to grab a ticket to Barcelona and go to Affiliate World or Bangkok or wherever else, like all the other shows that are out there. And particularly in the United States, there's a hell of a lot of marketing events. Whereas in Ireland, there's not much, there really isn't. There's some in the UK, London, which is a short hop away. But I knew like, you've got to meet people. You've got to get out there and talk to people and build relationships if you're going to make any progress in this business, because there's no product. I know there are people, we sell products, but there's no product in the sense that if you're a copywriter, like what you sell is very intangible.
Yes.
You have to have something to offer that to set you apart from other people. And a lot of times that's just a relationship. People like you, they trust you, they feel like they want to work with you, they feel like you'll be a good person to work with.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to build that trust and that connection is through having conversations with people. The easiest traditional way of doing that is, at conferences, events, meeting people. But for me, that wasn't possible. And in 2020, when I was like maybe about a year into copywriting, I was really struggling. Didn't have like much in the way of clients and didn't have any reputation yet. Didn't really get to know many people. And I knew I've got to do something about this. And if I can't go to these events, I've got to do it a different way. And I started to look at people who were very effective at building community, connecting people online, and just to model some of the stuff I saw that people doing. The first one I saw, I think you probably know him as well, is Stefan Georgi. I had bought one of his products. I was in his group, and he was just so effective at reaching out to people inside the group that he'd set up for the product and making people feel like they were having a good customer experience. I was like, this is how you do it. Like, you engage with people on social media, have conversations, both in a group setting and one-to-one where needed. And you start in the comments of other people's content, then you drop your own, and then you go on to having conversations with people privately, one-to-one. And I could see that you can do networking this way.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So like you said, you're not physically going, and Stefan actually was on my podcast. So we're going to link down the episode down below if you guys want to see the episode with Stefan. But in terms of, networking, and I met Stefan in person, and I actually also joined this group because he is obviously a great networker, a great speaker, and has a lot of knowledge. But also, there was the physical relationship, like meaning a physical relation, there was the fact that I met him physically, I should say.
Yes.
I met him physically. So there was more of a connection there, and I met his partner, and I met a lot of people at the trade show and so forth. And then obviously COVID started in 2020 and they all went online, and the networking started happening online. So there was, I think, a little bit of help to the introverts that year, in the sense of like nobody can go to any shows anymore. So there was kind of a little bit more pressure, but at the same time, and the one thing that I think you're very good at and that I'd like to kind of explore a little bit more is, how do you reach out? Like, how do you get, because I mean, it's already hard enough when you're in person, right? When you're in person, I'm tenured in my career, and I still sometimes have this like high school feeling, like, hi, how are you? I'm Maria. Like when I see somebody I want to talk to, I'm like, there's just that awkwardness. And sometimes, if you're at a trade show, you can have a drink. There's somebody who can introduce you. There's a little bit of that. But when you're online, and, I'm a victim of this, I get a lot of these, hi, Maria, how are you? So I'm just wondering, how do you actually approach people and get them to want to talk to you? Because I'll tell you what, I get like maybe 20 or 30 of these a week. And the bad thing is because there's these high, like at the beginning or once in a while, I'll just pop into my messenger and I'll be like, hey, I'm good. How are you? And then they're like, either they go crickets because they have nothing to, they actually don't know what to follow up, or they say something creepy, or they try to sell me something right away. And I'm like, okay, so I just like ignore everybody, because I'm like, there's literally just a waste of my time. I have no time for this. So how do you actually not sound creepy, not sound, desperately selling, or like, how do you actually connect with somebody online without all the bad stigma that comes with it?
Okay. There's a bit to unpack there. Yeah. So I'll give you a little backstory. I used to bartend in my 20s.
Oh,
and I used to work for this real fancy members club where there was like all the same people would show up every week. And because it was a members club, you had to get to know the members, and like they expected to be greeted by name when they come in the bar. You have to remember their favorite drink. So I had to learn a few little tricks to remember people's names and to remember details about it. But I got pretty good pretty quick, where I could like somebody walk in, hey John, how you going? I know John likes pink gin. I'm John too, obviously. But like I'm just thinking of one of my favorite regular clients. Like 17 years later, I could still remember him sitting at the end of the bar, like, what people like to drink. I'd have his drink ready for him in 30 seconds when he comes in. I'd ask about his son. I'd know things about people.
Yeah.
And I just found that, Kate, this is really good. If you just make a little bit of effort to know people, know what they like, know what they need, and you quickly you'll build rapport with them and they'll like you. And I just got really effective at that. So I kind of use the same principles with social media networking. If you just drop into somebody's DMs and say, hi, how are you? It's kind of rude. It's like sort of knocking on a stranger's door and like starting a conversation when they open the door. It's just going to weird them out.
Yeah.
So if I want to engage with somebody, I will typically engage with their content in a public setting first, whether that's on their Facebook profile, like in the feed, or inside of a Facebook group, or whether it's on Twitter as well. It works just the same. But the idea is like you're engaging with the stuff they're talking about publicly. So they have content, you can send comments underneath that. You could just put likes. You can even share the content as well. I tend to share people's content quite often. And then once you engage with them in a meaningful way, like if you just say, so true, this is awesome, that's kind of not enough. You have to have some context and something that actually shows you read and engaged with their stuff. And you do that a few times. And if some people try to weaponize this, they'll reply to 10 pieces of your content in 5 minutes, and they're going to send you some stupid DM. But if you do it authentically over a period of a few days, you engage their stuff, people will notice. And then you can just send them a friend request, send them a DM, say, hey. And usually when I open a conversation, the first thing is if I send them a friend request and they accept, I just say, hey, thanks for connecting with me, because a thank you is a good starting point to a conversation. And it's not like weird, like, how are you?
Yeah.
It can be, I don't like, how are you? I generally don't ask people how they are. My assumption is that people are doing great unless they tell me otherwise. And I find life goes better that way.
If they weren't, they probably wouldn't be telling a total stranger that they're not doing so good anyway.
Yeah, that's true too. They wouldn't tell you the truth either way, so it doesn't matter. And I start a conversation, you just thank them for connecting to me. Or if there's something that they liked that I wrote that I really liked, I'll just start the conversation with that. Hey, I was reading this the other day. I really liked it because, give a genuine reason, a little bit of context. I had a similar experience, or just something to open. Something I think that Dan Kennedy used to call the affinity bridge, of just like finding that point of connection, which is the bridge that you can walk over to start a conversation with somebody.
Mm. That's interesting. I really like that idea, because I do notice I have a couple of kind of more diehard fans in the sense of like they write me more and they write comments and stuff like that. And I'm always more willing to actually respond to them, because I'm like, oh, I don't know this person, but they gave me their opinion on this, or they shared my content and stuff. So it's complimentary to me, like when people like my content and find it interesting for them. I obviously I do this to help people. So like when I feel like I'm helping somebody, it makes me feel good. So I'm more inclined to respond. So actually I didn't even think of that. I'm going to use that strategy too. There are a couple of people on my hit list that I wanted to connect with, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Hi, how are you? Because this is so like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't like when people do that to me. Right. So if you can't get a direct introduction, this is a great way. If people are posting stuff about themselves, any platform, just, do that. I never thought of that. So thanks for that, John. That helped me. So in terms of, copywriting and so forth. So, obviously you're a master networker on a social media perspective, which is awesome, because most people, a lot of people like to create barriers for themselves. And I love that you didn't create a barrier for yourself because you can't travel. So a lot of people, I hear a lot of moaning, oh, I can't go to Affiliate Summit. I can't go to Traffic and Conversion. I can't go, all you guys do this and you become close and stuff like that. Yeah, great. But there are other ways to do it. You just have to, again, not be creepy or anything like that, and get to know people and try to engage with their content, and you could still do it. So everybody listening, there's no excuses for you guys not to meet people, even if you can't actually physically travel, whether it's because of financial reasons or family reasons. Everybody has, something that's going on. For example, for me, at the beginning of COVID, I had a young son. Like my kid was so small. And in 2018, 2019, 2020, like till 2022, it's just, he was in those young years where like, I just couldn't pick up and go. So the same thing for me, I felt like at first I was getting a bit of anxiety because I'd go to like maybe 4, 5, 6 shows a year where I'd kind of reconnect with people and, get back into like, the weeds of my network. And then I just kind of dropped off the face of the earth for like 3 or 4 years. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I started doing the same thing. For me, I just started putting out content that they can engage with and we can continue having conversations, So,
But
when there's a will, there's a way. That's basically what it comes down to.
yes, and there's three other things that you can do that are really effective. So the first thing is look out for things that people need. So I'm always doing this. If, like for example, with you, we know that you're the person who looks after people who have complicated payments needs. If your Stripe account gets busted, Maria is probably the person who can get you out of a jam. And so if a friend of mine's Stripe account gets busted, I'll just say, hey, you should go talk to Maria Spragus.
Yeah.
So and tell her I sent you. That's the other thing to do.
Oh yeah, that's
and then that happens a couple of times. Somebody comes to you saying, hey, such and such a friend told me to come and speak to you. Well, even if you don't know the friend personally, you feel like you do. And you also probably tend to feel like, hey, I should really talk to that person. They've sent me a couple of good leads here.
Yeah.
That's one thing you can do. If someone puts out a great piece of content, just click and share on Facebook, or you can do that on Twitter too, or other platforms. People really, really appreciate when you share this stuff because they often feel like, oh, nobody's reading my things, or I'm just getting a few likes and no interesting comments. But when you make the effort to actually share somebody's content, people always feel like you've gone that extra mile for them, and they really, really appreciate that a lot too. That's terrible. And then sometimes I will, I've had gifts sent to me and I've sent gifts to other people, and it's an amazing feeling when stuff comes in the post, like cool little gifts, and it's really powerful. I've got this thing, I'll show you. This thing is called the Ember Mug. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is a Bluetooth rechargeable coffee mug that has a little heater built into it, so your coffee never gets cold. It's
nice.
awesome. It's so cool. And a friend of mine, a young guy in Scotland named Umar Kokar, who's a copywriter, video marketing guy, he sent me that as a gift. And now it lives on my desk. And I think of this guy every day because I see this coffee cup because I drink the coffee.
Every time you take a sip of coffee, where you're like, oh,
every time I take a sip of coffee, I think of this guy. He owns real estate in my brain now, and he will for, until the batteries wear out on this thing, which will be a few years. He's going to own a space in my brain. And so like sending someone a little gift is a really powerful way to get their attention.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that before. Like I send like, if I don't know what to send somebody, sometimes I'll just send them like a $20 Amazon card. Just thank you, buy yourself something for me or something like that, but obviously if you know the person, you're able to send something, that's always, I get all these little trinkets and stuff like that sometimes, like for me, somebody sent me like a hair clip that just like literally never slips off my head when I work out. And I know all the men listening are probably like, whatever. I'm like, no, it's seriously a problem. It like literally clips onto my head and whatever. And it was like $5. Somebody just sent me like a little care package and I was like, oh, and I put it on, I'm like, oh, this is a great clip. And I'm like, it's something that like, it's $5. I can obviously afford to buy it myself, but it's just the thought of like, this is the best hair clip on the market.
Yes.
And it'll help you keep your hair, like it solves a problem, right? Because I could buy like 20 hair clips and then throw them out because none of them work the way I want them to work, right? So, and the coffee mug actually is a good idea because I've had this coffee mug on my desk for like a couple hours now. My coffee's bone cold, but I'm still drinking it. But yeah, that's maybe I'll buy myself one. Maybe now Umar is going to be a real estate in my head because I want one of those too. So. So John, I mean, one thing, obviously, there's the networking side, which obviously helps a lot with getting clients and building your business and getting your name out there. And I know a lot of people in copy and in marketing in general, people like call them in direct response industry, or, whether you're a content writer, any type of writer, your network is key, right? Because you may be a good copywriter, you may be an excellent copywriter, but if people don't know who you are, it's like you said, you're not selling tangible things. You're not selling a mug. You're not selling this. You're selling something that people got to know what you do in order to see value in it and so forth. So can you tell me a little bit, just we're diverting a little bit, but I hear a lot of this lately. I think it's just a sign of the times, and a sign also that the skill of copywriting right now is being put to the test because of AI. I mean, people who are just kind of average or below average are just not going to make the cut. AI is going to be able to do, even like it's doing very well now. Like I can't even imagine in 2 years from now how good it's going to be. So how did you differentiate yourself? Like you went from copy, now you got your networking kind of down packed, like you're really good and you keep engaged in networking. But how did you decide, you know what, just doing traditional copy jobs is not going to cut it for me? So first, tell me what you're doing specifically, like to unbox that for us, and how did you make that decision, and what are you doing now to stay successful?
Okay, I've tried a few different things over the past couple of years, but where my thought process changed was listening to an old Dan Kennedy training, which he did for copywriters, I think in the early 2000s. And in it, I wish I could remember which one it was because it was so useful and I've shared with so many people. He said in this training, hey, you copywriters, you need to stop calling yourselves copywriters because you're putting yourself in a box. Just start calling yourselves consultants. You'll be able to still write copy, but you'll get to do lots more stuff besides writing copy and you'll get paid more too. I was like, wow, that's really great advice.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I just changed the signature on my email. Instead of saying, direct response copywriter, I just changed it to direct marketing consultant. And that was that. And I was like, okay, now I can do more things. I can write copy. I can do some consulting with clients. I can help them put their offers together. I can help them put the funnels together. And I can just have a hand in different things. I can help with their email marketing. I can help with their ads. It doesn't really matter. If it's something to do with marketing, I can consult on it. And it was just like a little mindset shift that opened up a lot of different things. And since then, I've done lots of different stuff. So I've done fractional CMO for companies. I've been doing, like this year, a friend of mine invited me in to help run one of his offers, which is really great. I got to learn a bit of traffic. And after doing that, I said, actually, I really like this. I do like writing copy, but I don't feel like it's enough to be a business on its own. There needs to be other skills attached to it. So learning some Facebook ads and then, already having a background in copy, I can put the two together. And I started out doing local business lead generation. So running ads for local businesses and then generating leads for them and actually just helping them to find new customers. And it's been doing that for the last 2 months or so. And it's been a complete change, very different way of thinking than writing direct response copy. It's much more on the nose rather than having to be clever. Mm-hmm. But it's been really fun. It's been different, and it's letting me use the skills I've already gained and then develop new skills at the same time.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing. And there's a whole market outside of, just VSLs or email marketing copy. I think those email marketing copy and just copywriting in general are very popular because there's a lot of biz ops built on that, like make money from being an email copywriter and stuff like that. It's a little bit glamorized. And I think a lot of people think it's really easy where it's not. And mm-hmm. A lot of people are getting into it. And then, I get emails like, hey, do you want me to look at your copies? And I'm like, nope, definitely not, So, so like, obviously if English is not your first language and there are a lot of people, I'm a child of immigrants, so I have no hate for people who don't, who are not English native speakers. But you gotta diversify and maybe working in your local market might actually be more beneficial for you, right? Like even if you're in the US, wherever you are, I think people are just kind of online trying to find, these whale clients where sometimes, the restaurant down the street or maybe the coffee shop or maybe the hardware store is going to need a bit of help. And these are things I'm thinking, and you can tell us a little bit more about the process, but I'm curious, like, is there a lot of rinse and repeat in this type of stuff? Because yes, it's all, maybe the businesses are different, but do you find you're using kind of similar tactics in all the businesses to get the leads?
It's much simpler. I mean,
oh, okay.
Because for local business lead gen, I shouldn't say it's much simpler. There are things that are complicated too, but the copywriting part of it is much simpler.
Okay.
If you're doing a complex, like a business coaching offer or fitness coaching offer, you have to have a really clever, unique mechanism. You got to have a big idea. You got to have some really interesting hooks. And you can actually flesh that out into a VSL or into a webinar or some other long format, which takes a lot of work. It could take weeks and sometimes months to put it all together. Whereas with local business lead gen, it's very straightforward. It's based on things that there's almost universal demand for, like things like roofing. Well, if you've got a hole in the roof, you need to get it fixed. So it's more about timeliness, being in the right place, and then having simple offers where, if it's a roofing offer, maybe the roofing company also has a financing partner and they can let you get a new roof on your house for as little as $500 a month, so you don't have to pay it all up front. Or they can start the job before you, maybe you have an insurance claim on you, if they can help you start the job even before the insurance claim gets processed, and they'll sort the paperwork out later. So there can be lots of different appeals, but it's really about just putting interesting offers together with these businesses. There doesn't have to be a backstory. The need and the demand is already well established. Whereas something that's a little bit more abstract, like most coaching offers, there has to be a story told to explain to people why they need this in their life. Whereas the need for roofing services or the need for, a driveway cleaning or what other the kinds of things are.
Window cleaning was one I was targeted for. And I was like, boom, it's spring. I need my windows cleaned, So yeah.
Perfect example. That stuff is self-evident. The homeowner already knows they need this problem. Their windows are dirty. They're looking for a window cleaner. All you got to do is show up in the right place with a decent offer.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the same thing is, there's so many types of these businesses, like you just named. There's like on the home front, there's on the restaurant front, there's on the services front, like for homes and stuff like that. There's a ton of stuff that you can think of, and just targeting those could probably be a nice market, right, for a lot of people. If like you said, if you're in copy and maybe creativity is not your forte, this needs less creativity in the sense of like, you just have to flesh it out. Like, okay, who needs this service? Well, I mean, window cleaning, people who have homes, large this, you just kind of list it all out. And I think just to kind of segue into AI also, I think AI could probably help with something like this, right? Like, do you use AI to kind of help you flesh out some of these offers, or like what you can propose?
I'm not the best user of AI. I do use it to do research where I'm trying to figure out like what type of things to go after, what markets to look at, what to promote. But more often I'm, this comparative research of what's out there in the marketplace. And then just talking to the client is the most important part. What do they want? What do they want to sell? What do they actually sell right now? Like, I'm doing this for including other business for my wife's beauty salon. And we're just looking at, okay, what's your most popular service? And it's like, oh, it's a specific type of gel nail that her customers want more of. Okay, we're making art about that. She does 4 or 5 different types of nail services. We're not advertising them all. We're advertising the most popular one with the idea of like, that'll bring some people in the door and maybe they'll buy some of the other services afterwards, or we run things for spray tanning, because spray tanning is really seasonal this time of year. Like, people love to buy spray tans in Ireland. It's probably not as much of a thing in Canada, but because there's not much sunlight here, everyone wants it.
There's no sun here either. Ireland, Canada, we're all the same.
Okay. So yeah, everyone wants to look like they're suntan because summer is coming. But there's no sun to get the tan. So this time of year, spray tanning is really popular. So we've just put up ads for that, and it's bringing your business in.
Yeah.
So and what you said about creativity is great, because I am not a super creative person. And I really tried, like I beat my head against the wall with this stuff of copywriting. But like, you had Julian Reyes on before, like Julian Reyes is a super, super creative person, just because that's who he is. He's got like, his brain is firing off in different directions all the time. And I have another good friend of mine who, I won't say his name, but I know you know him too, because I sent him to you to do some business. And he's the same super creative guy. He's up at 3 a.m. in the morning painting pictures, and he, go off traveling to different countries on the drop of the hat, just anything to get like creative ideas and get the creative juices flowing. I'm just not wired that way. I'm not quite the same. And I definitely do like stuff that's a little bit more mechanistic, where it's like, okay, what's out there? What are the products? What are the offers we can put together? Let's try these different variations and get it out there, and let's just see what works. Like, that's kind of me. Whereas the more highly creative people tend to be driven oftentimes more by intuition and have just like a certain something, and they can create lightning in a bottle, but not everybody has that gift.
And that's okay. I'm not creative either. I'm literally like, I'm also kind of a factual type of person. I need to try something, it works, and I can do it again, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And, the example that you said about the beauty salon, like your wife's beauty salon, like, double down on what's working. If you go into like a hardware store and you get a hardware store client and you have good success, well, there's your use case, and just go to every hardware store and say, look what I did for this guy, look what I did for this guy, and then just keep going, right? Like, it's funny that you went into copywriting, but you say you're not creative, which is kind of like the opposite, right? You'd feel like somebody who's in copy, like marketing would be, but you used your skills to find something that works, which, I love that, because I think a lot of people just, like I said, they box themselves in. And so the example that you gave of Dan Kennedy is that, don't call yourself a marketer, even, something general, because that really helps open your mind. And same thing with me when I was like, what should I do? What should I do? At first, it's like, I'm this and I'm that and I'm that. And then, finally I'm like, high risk merchant accounts. That's it. That's what I do.
Uh-huh.
Done. We don't have to beat the wheel. Like, and then sometimes there's clients who come to me that I can't help. You're not going to help everybody. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's not my skill and somebody else's skill, and it's okay. But you could still give yourself a title and do your best at, finding a market for that. Right.
Yes, I think it is important to find work that you do enjoy. Like I just said, I'm not the most like super creative person, but I do enjoy writing, and I do enjoy solving problems with clients, and try to have fun. And there was a time where I was really pushing, like, okay, this is what you do in direct response to be a copywriter, and you have to work on these type of offers, and this is where the opportunities are. And I was trying to push myself into this narrow corner, and really not enjoying it. And a good friend of mine actually said to me, "Hey, John, you don't seem like you really enjoy what you're doing anymore. In fact, you kind of seem like you hate it these days, and that's not very good."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? He's actually right." And I was like, "Okay, so you know what? This particular type of work or these particular type of projects, maybe that's just not the right fit for me. And instead of trying to force myself that way, I'll just find adjacent things that I do enjoy more, and I'll have more fun that way, and actually be more productive and get more things done because I'm enjoying my work rather than kind of joyously trying to force myself into what appears to be the right option." You said something interesting earlier about like the way the market is going and things are changing for newer copywriters.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. Even this week, all the copywriters on Facebook are all chatting about how even Steph and Georgia came out and said, "Hey, don't do copywriting in 2024." Like,
oh wow, okay. I'm on point. I guess I didn't read that, but okay.
He just came out and said that in the last couple of days. He put a video up on YouTube, and I watched it, and he was not saying, he's like, I've made my whole career out of copywriting, been very successful with it, but like for me, it's okay. I'm already, at a certain level, and there's lots of people around me, and my students and friends are already at a certain level. They're established, they have their network, they have gigs coming to them. But for somebody who's brand new day one and doesn't know anything, like the journey to get to being established has never been harder. We're in a period where the demand has dropped for copy in the last year or so. Automation is replaced, and automation has also made the top people more productive than they used to be.
Yes.
So they're gobbling up more market share. And then it's also in terms of perceptions of employers, they feel like maybe they don't feel copywriting is as valuable as they used to when they couldn't find an easy way to get it done. And it's just like for people starting out now, it's just so much harder that I can't really say that it's a good opportunity for somebody who's new. So like for him to say that, it's a pretty big deal. It is true. I think just writing copy, like you said, is not going to be enough anymore. Email marketing is a good skill, but that's not just writing copy. It's also knowing how to manage an email list,
yes,
knowing things about deliverability, understanding strategy. So there's more to it. And there is always going to be a market for someone who's a really great expert at writing VSLs or writing webinars or any of those others, or creating Facebook ads or YouTube ads. But like just one skill alone is not enough. You have to be somewhat multidisciplinary now because there's so many great tools out there and there's just so much competition.
Yeah, I think the day of like, I could say even a couple of years ago where I'd ask for emails, I'd get a Google Doc with like the emails and here you go. Those are done. Like I wouldn't even accept that now. I'd be like, okay, well, you wrote these emails. Well, pop them in, check the deliverability. Let me know the results. How many people bought? Like I need some information, like just sending me this and telling me, here you go. That's done. I think it's just too many people that are able to offer way more than that at probably similar prices than what you would charge just for the copy. It's kind of like you charge for your copy and you do everything else for free kind of thing, like manage the list and so forth. But obviously depends on where you are in your journey and stuff like that. But I'm talking about like beginner, intermediate, like you got to learn. For me, like with email and stuff like that, it's not knowing how to manage the list or tools or how to get stats from it, how to get better deliverability. You're not an email copywriter, because to me, email copywriter now is the full thing. You got to know how to, maybe even strategies to increase the email list, deliverability, write the email, measure the results, all that kind of stuff. So that's interesting. So I'm just curious, now that we're kind of talking about local businesses and so forth, because I think this is maybe an untapped market and something that, maybe newer people or people who have a little bit of experience in their local market, they can go out there and try to get some local businesses and do some ads, do some lead gen and so forth. Is there one platform that you find works best, like Facebook works best for local business, or Twitter or TikTok? Like, is there something, and I'm talking your general local businesses, right? Like beauty salons, hardware stuff, like just regular stuff.
Well, look, I have to say, like, there's so many different ways of skinning the cat. I've just because it's been a relatively new development, but I've focused so far on doing Facebook ads for people.
Okay.
But yeah, Google is huge. There's so many different categories of Google ads now. There's your typical Google search ad. There's the thing called LSAs, local search ads, which are a different category of search ad that are click to call. There's call only ads where you click a button and it just goes straight to a phone. There's no landing page. And then there's also obviously YouTube as well. And that can be used for local. So there's so many different categories of Google ad. It's probably the biggest platform of all. There's so many different ways to do it. And in terms of getting the clients, I'm running ads to get clients. I'm running my own Facebook ads to get clients to book calls onto my calendar. So I'm doing the eating your own dog food thing where you have to actually use the service you're selling to actually get the result that you're offering. And then I'm using my Facebook profile and putting posts up saying, hey, I'm looking for these type of business. Do you have a friend? Refer me your friend. I'll send you $100, those kinds of things.
Oh, nice.
Just simple everyday stuff. Yeah. And then also just, looking around is like, are there businesses I know? No, I don't actually work in my local market in Ireland. I prefer to work in the US for a whole bunch of reasons that I won't get into here. Yeah. But if you're like living in the US or Canada, there's so many like sizable, like local businesses there in the US and Canada are so much bigger than local businesses in most of the countries. Whereas like the typical local business here will be maybe, a 1-2 person operation, or a bigger local business might be 10 or 20 people. Whereas that's still a very small business in the US and Canada because you've just got big populations, and people therefore see much more growth opportunity in even a local business. And so they're much better as potential candidates to work with, and you can reach them through advertising.
Interesting. So you advertise to get your local businesses to want to work with you, basically.
Yeah, I'm now starting to advertise in the US to get US local businesses to work with me.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So yeah, you are using your own strategy for you're kind of using the same technique to get them that you're using for them at the end. So that's awesome.
Eat your own dog food.
Yeah. And even local businesses, like I have some friends that are like lawyers and accountants. Actually, a friend of mine is an accountant, and she's like, hey, can you help me out with like people ask me all these technology questions, which I find really funny. Like just because I work in the online environment, they like, it's like going to the cardiologist for like a foot problem kind of thing, but I get all these questions. And I have a friend who's an accountant who just basically said, I want to get some more clients, and, I'm thinking of using AI to write some content for SEO and stuff like that. And these are usually clients, like an accountant has more margin, right? Has more money that they can spend on this kind of stuff. So this would be a great, accountants, lawyers, all kinds of, professional services that people may need, on their own car shops and stuff. Like, you could create a huge list, but it's interesting that you're using your methods to get them and working more with US businesses. Do you find, just kind of in closing, because there's a lot of people who listen also that are international and so forth, and it could be applicable for Americans because you might be in California and looking for businesses in New York and so forth. Do you find, as a non-local, like what can you do to not sound like a non-local? You know what I mean? Like, because for me, there's certain things, like for example, an ad for a local business has to make me feel like it's a local business.
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel like it's not,
really helpful. AI is super helpful for this. The first thing is reviewing what's out there and actually looking. You have to enjoy writing. So like looking what the ads are out there and looking at the specific language people are using, talking to the client, modeling the client's specific language, looking at the client's testimonials and Facebook reviews, Google reviews, Amazon book reviews, anything where people are Reddit, all the same traditional stuff you do for copywriting applies here. And the thing is, what you can use ChatGPT for is just to say, hey, can you give me this in 8th grade American English? And it'll give you 8th grade American English. And that usually works pretty well for people who English isn't their first language.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So that's so you are using ChatGPT more than you're letting on. Then, like, I mean, you're using it to write some copy and so forth. So that's interesting. Because yeah, there must be even Canadian versus US. There are still some differences. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Canadian, US, UK, Ireland, even though we're all English speakers, there's things that I would say that just wouldn't make sense to somebody in the US. You would say to me that wouldn't make sense in Canada. So, you know, I think using ChatGPT just to Americanize it or Canadianize it or, you know, make it British or whatever is a great idea. So, John, you've given us a wealth of information. You know, I know that, you know, in terms of networking, you're solid. And now I know that you're also a very, I don't know what the word is. I want to say creative, but see, the thing is, you said you're not creative, but like, I think you found a very creative way to use your skills, right? Because I commend you for that, because I find there's a lot of people making a lot of excuses these days because things aren't going necessarily as well as, you know, it was, you know, in 2020, copywriters were like, I'm charged $10,000 for this and blah, blah, blah. And yeah. It's like, okay, that's enough, you know? So I commend you for that, because you found another niche and you're making it work. So that's really awesome. So everybody listening, you can follow John on social media. Don't be weird or creepy, because John will not accept your friend request and will not talk to you. But if you have some intelligent questions, or if you want to network the right way, John's your guy. And obviously, John, thank you so much for all your time and for all these amazing tips.
Cheers, Maria. Thanks so much. Appreciate you helping me out today.
Thank you.